more authentic.
Thanks, my body.
All right, hang on really quick, folks. Almost there. Getting everything synchronized here. Making sure we're all online.
All right,
we got one going there. Good, good. Got another one going here.
and everything synchronized.
Okay, got that going. All right. Hello. Sorry about that. To get everything synchronized between the different platforms. I'm not going to be multicasting forever, but for now I'll keep doing it. But I'll remind folks, if you're on the main channel that just says Gabriel Cruz, you're going to want to start to subscribe to the mirror channel also. Yeah, I mean, both of them. Don't unsubscribe from one and go to the other. That's not what I'm suggesting. But those of you who are viewers, if you could subscribe to the other one, it'll help, because I'm not going to be doing these live streams on this channel indefinitely. Pretty soon I'll just do it on the other one. It's going to be exclusive to that. So right now, not quite at 10% of the same subscriber base. So that makes it challenging to know, how many of those are active versus like ones that are just kind of dormant, and don't really follow the live material. If I have the bulk of the audience that watches regularly, I'm not going to worry that much about it. But I feel like I should at least be pretty close to at least 30%, before I start transitioning exclusively over to doing only live streams on the other channel. But I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet. So if you want to link to the other one, and again, this is one of the incentives for you folks, is that I'll just begin to simply turn off the chat on the main channel. And so what that'll wind up doing is making it to where anybody who wants to like participate in the chat will have to go to the mirror channel. And I just posted it right now to both of them. Sorry about that. But my streaming software gives me the option basically of like, only doing chat in one or all of them or whatever. So what I might wind up doing, I just don't like to get distracted with it. I try to keep my concentration going with the same whatever. But no, guys, don't worry about it. I mean, it's not like it's a bad thing or something. It's just like it'll help you in the future make sure that you're going to be able to find my material in the event. Because a lot of times people will go like, hey, where were you for a couple weeks? And I'll say, well, I learned my lesson from the last couple times that I got suspended, that they'll suspend you for a week or a few days or whatever. And then pretty soon they suspend it for like, a lot longer. So I wanted to make sure that I minimize those events on the main channel as much as possible, is all I'm trying to do. So I do appreciate everybody subscribing to the other one, and that'll really help me understand like how many people are aware of it and how many have I gotten to merge over to the other one, because I'm trying to keep track of that to basically figure out when I'm going to pull the switch on this main channel as far as stop live streaming from it. And it's just, again, because I spent many years establishing the content on the main channel, and I don't want to risk it because of some crap over some nonsense over the live stream. Anyways, today is the topic is basically about energetics and numerology. I was trying to think of a way to talk about this. I guess what I could start by doing is to give you guys the basics of energetics if you don't know that material already. And I would encourage anybody who is really trying to say, what now, Gabe? I mean, I already know what's wrong. So how do I fix it? And where do we go from here? I would say, like, if you want to know what's wrong still, if you're that person, or you want to fine tune your understanding of what's wrong, I have one playlist that I call Justin Gabriel Cruz Information Sharing for Concerned Parties. It's over 30 clips. It's really the core of my research material relative to infrastructure hacks, what's going on within our telecommunications grid, our internet grid, all the different associations that existed. Most people are unaware of as far as central warehousing of information. And so what I try to do is that's like one dedicated list of material that's sort of like, I guess you could say, like, breaks through the illusion of what we all thought was our information flow. And again, I don't like to spend a lot of time just going over that material excessively, because I'm really more trying to focus on solutions today. And I'm more of a solution focused mind at this moment. I'm really thinking more metaphysically and less physical reality, because I understand now how significant of abilities that I personally have, and that there's others around me that have significant ability as well. And that really the best thing that I can do at this moment, given what I have inside me, is at any given time that I have an opportunity to amplify a biofield relative to a thoughts become things element, that those should be the things that I focus on, really beyond anything else. I really thought about this heavily. I've meditated on it for a couple of days, actually, strongly, and thinking about why does things like this number thing happen? Why is it so effective, and why are there so many references to like today's date, for example? And I don't know. I mean, again, what is 57? A lot of reasons why that could be relevant. I'm not going to focus on that excessively. It's mostly that I thought it's just because today is that thing. I thought, hey, maybe here's some things that you might not even associate with today's date, and let's start with that. And so I thought that's a cool just way to kick it off, and then it gives me an opportunity to show you some of the energetics material. But the reason why I've gone through all of this and spent all this much time talking about, quote, what's wrong, like what's wrong? Like, people always say, why can't I get clear information on what's happening? I really just want somebody to explain it to me clearly. I really think I did that. I think that if you go through my material that says Justin Gabriel Cruz, information sharing for concerned parties, you'll find that I give it to you in very plain English. I don't try to dance around things. I'm not a person, honestly, that I try to understand things and explain them at a pretty basic level. I don't really try to overcomplicate things. If I run across a piece of information that's very, very complicated, my first, honestly, despite what you might think, maybe you do or don't, my brain shuts off. I just like make that simpler for me. And then if I want to learn it, and then somebody won't do that, or I can't find the material that makes that happen for me, then I begin to like slowly deconstruct it, because my brain just is like, I want to know it. I want to know what that says. I want to know what that means. So I'll begin to deconstruct it a little bit. And then as I do that and understand it at a greater level, then I try to make it more understandable and digestible to the average person. And then I took a whole bunch of this really complicated information surrounding how human energy flow works, how thoughts become things, the placebo effect. What is all that at a scientific level when you translate it to things that are more sociological in nature, that translate from something that's sociological to something that translates to something metaphysical, then becomes something physical, because we are in an energy loop, folks. If you think about it, you can actually see the electrical field within the earth and the rotational field. It's right there. The solid data is there. You know that these things exist as I'm telling you. And so when you're existing within that, then you must understand that when your thoughts become things, it's because those who figured out that field that I'm discussing there, that's nothing for you to fear or think like, oh my God, the earth's going to spin out of rotation. It's like, no, you think about what you're looking at there, then you ask yourself, how do I fit into that? Well, everything that you see within those rotational fields within the earth are the same thing that happens inside your human body. It's an identical replication of it. You have all the same toruses and toroids and EM fields and everything, and in your chakra system, and the earth has them too, because what you are is a replica of the earth that becomes that within your mother's belly. It's receiving earth resonance, boom, 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 boom. And that's why she forms the round belly, because she's literally forming another earth inside her belly. That's why she is the mother earth, because she's creating a replication of the earth inside her that's also going to be a part of her and the father. And it's vibrating into resonance into like this globular structure. Then the baby is inside. And then what I would argue, folks, is that what we exist on this planet is we're all resting on the physical body of the baby. And then the ocean is the embryo, and the water and the embryonic fluid around it. That's the replication. You understand that? So when you look at one, you're looking at the other. one is a microcosm of the other. The baby is just another model of the earth because it received that model from the earth and the mother in tandem. And so what you have is this perfect model of the physical body of the person, right? And it's rotating into form like the DNA coil, but also the torus, the toroid, whatever you want to call it, right? I always screw that up, folks. So just, you know what I'm talking about. I'm just not the guy that's that rigid with terms. I mean, yes, I am, and I'm not. You know, sometimes I'm like, you know what I mean, because I'm on a roll and I don't feel like looking the word up. I always screw that one up though, because there's like 3 different ways of communicating it, and I know that they're different things. So just figure it out. The DNA coil is a larger EM field, right? There's a series of EM fields. So, all right. And then, and so we're vibrating into resonance, right? And then that's how you become you. And then when you understand that that's what biblical prophecy, not prophecy, but like Genesis is about, it's really kind of cool when you think about it. Genesis really is exactly what I just told you. It's explaining it to you. If you see it, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, there's even mysticism within that Christian Bible, perhaps that you didn't think about before. What is the snake? Maybe that's the DNA coil. Maybe they're just communicating the spiral form or whatever, and it has less to do with something else that we've all attached to it. A lot of these things, I think, were just metaphoric for just explaining the way an energy coils and how there's certain species within animals that actually are representations of the energies, because all these animals are representations of energies, just like you are a representation of energy that forms into something that you perceive as physical, but absolutely is not. There's no solid matter. It does not exist. It's all a plasma field that we exist in. And that's why everything's this replication of everything. It's just like when you form into your mother's belly, all it's doing is it's an energy cycle that's going like, hey, I need to look like whatever I just came from, because it's spinning into vibratory whatever. You're oscillating into frequency, into this field of that's whisking in all the materials in. That's partly your mother. That's partly the earth. Zoom, 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 zoom. There you are. Right. And, it's, I don't know, to me, the more you understand energetics, the more, you want to focus on things that are metaphysical in nature. You want to focus on things that are more creation. You want to focus on things that you understand will help bring, better things into physical reality. How does that work? Because when you focus on things the same way, like, mystic societies will all get together, church groups will get together, people get at synagogues, churches, temples, you name it, whatever it is, where they have special architecture, and then groups of people all share a common ideology, and perhaps they have hymns they sing, or they might have chants, or they might have rituals, or they might have that might be part of what they do. All valid. They're all doing something that involves vibratory frequencies. And then when they're thinking about something, they're taking the common vibratory frequency of their voices, and they're all hearing it. So what this, I would argue, is it's similar to the way technology works. They're creating a common clock. Get you on a common clock. You're vibrating your body into resonance. You're getting together with this other group of people, and they all start doing this with their voice, and they start to lower it that way. That there's something to the reason why that's done, in a group of people like that. Why do they do that? And you can see the examples of this. And it keeps you on a clock. It vibrates your body into a common harmonic. And then all of them are agreeing to think about the same thing at the same time as part of their ritual practice, or whatever they're doing as mystics, or whatever they're doing as a religious group or spiritual society. They oftentimes are hiving their thoughts together because they are trying to vibrate something into physical reality. They're trying to create a better world, or in some cases a worse world, depending on the group. But it always does have an effect on the collective consciousness, whether people want to agree with that or not. And then when you add into that, some of these groups will go up to mountaintops that have, way up high on a peak. And then some of these places just filled with very resonant crystalline structures, or quartz, or granite, that has tons and tons of that pixie dust, shavings of crystal. And all of these things do vibrate things into physical reality, whether people want to believe it or not. I've just seen too many signs of it. I know it's true. I know that thoughts become things in a way that's pretty miraculous and pretty remarkable. It's not anything that you should really take lightly. And the reason why things like all these different groups and brands and labels or whatever, I mean, we're going to talk about that in greater detail. I'm not trying to make this all like blah, 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 like, hey, whatever. But I want to say that I'm going to talk about numerology in energetics tonight. Yes. But it's because it's going to be more of a focus on, let's talk about why all these brands are like this. And I might even, I'm going to give you a little bit of things that are part of the physical reality badness, but not excessively, mostly because I'm trying to help you understand a little bit why so many different groups might try to do something this common together, relative to, like getting a number hived into a collective consciousness, and they would want to anchor something more negative in association to the number in some cases, or they may want to just encourage positive associations with the numbers by using it, or they may just understand that there's so many associations with the number that it gets the attention of everybody, just and like, why would, for example, like there be a beer named 33 that like it's in Vietnam? You ever, because I used to eat a lot of pho. I still do, and I guess not a lot, but it's something I like. I just don't eat the beef, but pho is a type of Vietnamese soup. For those, it's spelled more like PHO. Some people actually call it pho, but it's actually supposed to be pronounced pho. And anyways, but a lot of those restaurants, if you go in there, they have that beer that's called 33. I think it's from Vietnam. I'm not sure the exact country of origin, but if it's not from Vietnam, it's certainly sold in a lot of Vietnamese restaurants. And but again, I think that's why they put the 33 on the bottle like that, despite the fact that it's a brand from over there and they have different symbol association and things like that. It's because they were conscious and aware of the power and the momentum of the number 33, and that it does have a stronger, I guess you could say, effect on the collective consciousness. A lot of people understand the number for various reasons. They use it for positive things, for negative things, and then beyond that, there's something at a very subconscious level that I just think the double three patterning taps into relative to creation and life, because of all the things that exist naturally with threes. So yeah, spiritual la la lands. Yeah. Well, but there's also but I think what I would say also though, but I mean, really though, with architecture though, there's ways for, regardless of like what the people's beliefs are, like the architecture will play a part in amplifying their thoughts. So whether it's a quote la la land environment, or it's an actual spiritual center that might actually, have some legitimacy, the people that build them, aren't idiots most of the time. They usually, like, if they amplify things to that level, they definitely know what they're doing. It's just that, are they amplifying the right thing? Are they going out of their way to create the quote la la nonsense type ideologies that will do what? Not bring the practitioners into greater abundance and a greater connection to God. It'll actually separate them from abundance and separate them from God, and create a more hive together thought form entity that'll actually give more to, maybe whoever the central leaders of the church are, who may not always have the best interests of all the practitioners. That's common. Again, I'm not trying to be overly whatever, accepting of all of these concepts either. I think that, it's recognizing the power of structures relative to beliefs, really, and just making decisions now amongst everybody to say, like, look, I'm more of a guy that looks at this as science, and I look at it as bioenergy. I kind of look at everybody in a way where I see what they do all together brilliant, and I see the errors, I guess you could say, always. I kind of just zoom out from all of it because I don't feel strongly associated with anything, but I see the beauty in all of it. I'm not saying that to have it all ways. I promise you. It's because the longer I studied faith and religion, and I actually read the documents, I would go to different groups. Honestly, the only one that I really feel like I've missed out on the esoteric learnings of, that I want to know more about, is Judaism. I don't understand Judaism nearly as much as I want to. And when I do get to study it, I want to make sure I do it in a way I want it to have some degree of structure, but I don't do well with structured learning, And so I'm trying to find a way to learn more about Judaic learnings, just overall. I mean, all of it. Because I know that they have these things of involving what's called like a God number, a very long God number that exists. And there's things within the Torah and the Talmud, and again, even that whole distinction confuses me, quite honestly, even though I've read things like that. Okay, so I need more to understand that in particular, but I do think there's a lot of answers there, just the way that I talked about even the story of Adam and Eve. I mean, guys, if we want to be cynical, and I don't think that you are, by the way, just so you know, at all. I don't think you're like that. But what I mean to say is like within the story of Adam and Eve is that you can learn something, I think, from that story. And if you don't take that whole like literal 100% literal translation, yet in a way, I used to say that it's like, you don't take it literally, but in a way, when I understood plasma fields, I go, well, in a way, the Bible actually is a lot closer to the truth than people would imagine. That's all. I learned that, and I had to learn that scientifically, though. I had to approach it scientifically and bioenergetically to learn the Bible actually has truths in it. But before I looked at it cynically, like, oh yeah, Adam's rib, right? He came from the earth. But what did I just talk about earlier? What is that? Is that not the story of Adam and Eve when I talked about earth resonance relative to how you form in your mother's belly? To me, I see a nearly direct parallel to the story of Adam and Eve. To me, it's discussing the energy, right, that flows. So you have like Kundalini type things, rather, what do you want to call that, right? But I think you just have full on energy flow that goes top through bottom through the human body relative to the chakra system. And I think that when you understand that whole energy flow, then it helps you understand the larger DNA coil linked to how a human forms within another human, and that it's a reference. You need to think about you as a baby as you grow inside the mother's womb, is that you're a reference between earth resonance and the DNA within the physical body of your parents. Then you have what is external from you, like a trinity in and of itself. Everything's trinities within energy. And so, yeah, you're partly what is about to become, because you're there in the ionosphere. You're actually linking to that. You're part of the earth. You get the earth resonance. You get the clock signal from the earth. And then you also get the from the DNA. Then you get that other part of the Trinity. I mean, again, you have the Father, the Spirit, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, another Trinity. I mean, these things actually communicated if you're looking in that direction. See, if you take a cynical approach, I don't think you're going to find it. And I always took a more cynical approach, and I wasn't finding it. And so I didn't see the beauty in what was going on within Christianity. I only saw it from a cynical perspective of like, oh yeah, sure, some dude's rib came up from the sand. Ugh. Yeah, what other sci-fi stories you got to tell me? What about the dinosaurs, guys? I was like that, though, honestly, and I just don't see it that way now. I feel like the more I understood bioenergetics, the more my science understanding was compatible with actual spirituality. To me, energetics is the bridge between spirituality and science. It explains it all through the universal plasma field in a way that which should satisfy rigid scientific people, and it should satisfy spiritualists equally. That's what I love about it. It really is part of a greater work when you get down to it. Understanding energetics and spreading this knowledge really bridges people that are rigidly scientific to people that are spiritualists. I promise you, this is exactly at the root of what I want to focus on. I really don't want to talk excessively about my old material. Except to just sort of peel back the layers of the matrix or whatever you want to call it. So, and especially now, I mean, I'm just, I see how strong it is. I see the ability to actually bring things into physical resonance through focus, concentration, and meditation, all of it. It's pretty remarkable. And, yeah, especially the more I study the biofield, especially after I did Energetics Part 11, this is when I really felt inside my own mind that I'm satisfied with the science of spirituality relative to everything. Like when somebody believes in these larger spiritual concepts in a way that's real and scientific, and not, like what you said, Lisa, like I appreciate what you just said, actually, because I had somebody come in here the other day and give me this spiritual la la land lecture, and I didn't like it, and because I didn't feel like it was genuine. I felt like it was there towards sort of like tell people that if you even understand, like what I just said, that's demonic. And I'm like, no, what I just told you to me is, I feel like that validates a lot of the Christian Bible. I don't think anybody should be in fear of it, but hey, people are entitled to their opinions, but I just don't want somebody coming in and going like, devil 666, Gabe. To me, that's la la land. That's part of it. You know what I mean? As much as anybody who just like, goes like, takes that sort of like footloose preacher interpretation of the Bible, like, well, dancing's evil, and if you listen to music, you're going to go to hell, that kind of thing. That's all that to me. If the point of what you do with your quote spirituality is to freeze people, is to stun them, to scare them, to spook them, then no. I mean, what you're doing is not it's not spiritual, and I would argue it's always deviated far away from its original origins. Anybody who wants to meet with a group of people together and look to God or to look for something more spiritual, they're obviously not there to have the crap scared out of them and feel worse. And, if that's what people are doing with their quote religion or their spirituality, then yeah, they're on a wrong path. I would argue you're supposed to be there, especially if you're a preacher having a church every Sunday or something like that. I would say that it's not your function just be like going, hellfire, damnation. It's your role to say like going, hey, how do we get through these unique challenges that those of us who believe in these things face nowadays? Maybe handle it from that angle instead of making your practitioners like scared into like doing more things that might lead them in the wrong path. And that's why I always put me off from religion for years and years, as I saw too many people that, to me, were following a false model that I felt like did not bring me in spiritually. Do you know what I mean? And it didn't like, it wasn't something that made me feel like I was a part of it. And so I rejected it, largely for a long time in my life. I just didn't let it into my heart. And I did go to churches, quite a bit, in whatever you want to call it. When I was younger, I was trying out different churches, and it wasn't working out. That's all I can tell you. I tried, and I think it's because I just didn't really have a good example. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like now even God is more of an individual thing, and I find it more, internally, the more I focus and meditate on the concept of like a universal energy, then that made me understand that, yeah, there's obviously something. And I learned this several years ago, but pretty close to when I had that weird Ka Codex experience where I downloaded all that information and made all those notebooks from it. That's when I really got the download that, yeah, there's just something, there's just something else that was going on. I remember writing somebody an email and I said, I don't want to focus on this crap anymore. To me, this is all dark. It's there to distract me. And I want to focus on things like with my maps. And I said that to these people. I go, you guys are trying to distract me, and I want to do my maps. I know my maps are going to lead to something bigger. And then as soon as I shut everybody off and I started doing all those maps, it led to all the other articles that I did. It's weird. The maps, people who think that I waste my time with maps, they don't really know what I'm doing. I spend a lot of times with the map information, and then the map information gives me tangible information about things in physical reality that I can solve. And then once I've unpackaged the physical reality problems that allow people to say, yes, there's something wrong there. Now I have tangible data to say I can address that. Then I go, great. You do your physical reality thing. Now I'm going to go do, I'm going to go focus on learning how I solve your problems through the metaphysical that resonate into giving you your physical reality solutions. I wish I could get more people to understand it because I'm very talented at it, and I'm learning how to get better at it, and I'm learning how to make it work in even stronger ways. So, and I think it's actually happening, and it's making me feel more at peace as a result. So. That's a good point, Lisa. Yeah. So Lisa said it's easy to be a monk on a mountaintop in Tibet, but in reality, many mystics may be cleaning toilets or picking up garbage. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know, guys. I mean, just saying. Yeah. Sometimes you got to find your balance, doing your daily, whatever you want to call, you have to find your balance and actually in some of the being immersed in some of the situations, but yeah, that's a good point. I agree. But I also wonder sometimes, like, I mean, you have to have a frequency clear environment. So, I guess you have to provide an environment, for people to practice things in silence or in quiet or whatever. So, you know, um, does it make them all gifted at what they're doing up there? Like, are they all uniquely gifted, or is it a little bit of a hack? I mean, yeah, I understand, does it make some of the people that are from there like natural born mystics in the classic sense, or are they just using the location as a quote energy hack because it's easy to accomplish those results up there if they just get a whole bunch of them to think the same thing at the same time? Yeah, I mean, it is easier, and I would argue, based on my own work doing this, that it's pretty challenging. But I feel like, look, uh, like what I do is, I put myself in some weird situations myself, but I don't know how like a Tibetan monk would do in a situation that I deal with. But I mean, it's a different kind of energy that they're dealing with. You know, I put myself in situations that are, I think I've placed myself in areas that have negative energies very frequently, and I didn't want to be in there. But I think the thing that I've learned about me and the way that my system works is that I don't let negative energy locations dominate me. There reaches a certain point where something clicks in my brain, and I start to say, no, I'm going to do something in the positive orgone radiation spectrum to change this radically. I'm not going to let this DOR spectrum radiation hammer me down or make me feel intimidated or drive me into a psychotronic, like, spin cycle of like, kind of thing. There's seriously dark energy areas, guys. Like, I've talked about it. The mechanics of negative energy. The Uvarov article is really brilliant. Yeah, and because there's areas like that exist here all across the United States that are not unlike the Mayan temples. So like the way he talks about how there's like areas where they binded sacrifice to those the alabaster bowls that they made, and they had the rock specially designed to create blood flow even. And it worked all the crowds up into this frenzy, and so they all got really into it. Like, it put them into, they themselves wanted to see it. They were into it, and so that kind of binded to the location. And people don't really think about this when they go to these like ancient temples and these areas and things like that they may actually be causing themselves harm if they're not mentally prepared for it. And I thought it was I mean, that's why I like that article so much, is because it actually discusses that in great detail. And I've been in some of these places where I just know, I mean, it's I think some were artificially created through technology, but I also think in other cases, the places that I was in, I was just genuinely sensing the energy. It's just a very, very strong negative energy that was in the area. And sometimes it could be pretty powerful to where it could nearly shut me down, like just like make my brain just go, like almost to where it's almost like whatever you want to call it, like you're what's the word? It's almost like being narcoleptic. I mean, it's like the switches that go out. It's like you have to go to sleep just like that. And I've learned to take those events when those things happen, especially when I can feel like almost like a strong wave associated with it. Like it's kind of like a boom, 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 boom. I go into a kind of a deep meditative state at that point, and I don't let the negative energy bother me. I kind of understand it now, and I let it kind of like I think of it like I have this video where I recorded just this really like this rock that was inside the beach, and it's been there, I guess, for a really long time, and the water, every time the ocean crashes against it, all the water just flows against the rock and it just gets smoother and smoother. And it occurred to me that, there is just something metaphoric about that I think about when negative energy is flowing towards me now, to think of it more like, to imagine that instead of it being negative energy, that if you can envision that, you can create like a little bit of a reversal, I guess, and think of yourself as like the rock and that it's ocean water flowing across you. And then it takes the effect out of some of the negative energy because you're kind of visualizing that. And it's weird how the mind can do things like that. I mean, like now I would say that maybe right now, maybe you don't feel so good. Maybe take that negative energy you feel right now, if something or someone is making you feel that way. And whatever it is that's coming at you, then try to imagine that you're just the rock in the ocean, that it's ocean waves going. And it's not annoyance, and that it's not pain. It's not anger. It's not frustration. What this person's doing now is it's not affecting you because you're just that rock inside the ocean. So it's, again, it's kind of like that phraseology that I was trying to talk about the other day that said when you're upset with somebody, you can, instead of, like maybe you don't understand why they said something or did something, but you don't want to misinterpret it. You could always say, I return your intention to you inside your mind. That way you're not damning the person, but you're also not like being a schmuck. You know what I mean? You can make peace in your mind that like, I'm not sure I feel comfortable accepting that. So I think I'll just say, I return your intention to you. That way, if you were well-intentioned, then the end effect is that when I return to sender, that it's going to have a good effect on you as a person and that it won't harm you. But if you are trying to harm me, then this way I know that I'm just simply not accepting the harm and that it'll go back to you. And that's the way karma should work. And I would argue that that's a good way of thinking of whatever you want to call it, the punitive form of karma, which I really don't like to discuss. I think you should just look at karma as energy cycles of like you send it out, it comes back to you. Like if you're kind and you're thinking of people in a positive way and you're trying to help them and things like that, then that kindness tends to return to you. That help returns to you. And it's been my experience that if I'm when I'm less cynical and I take this approach, that better things happen for me. So I try to remind people that a big point of the whole thing with energetics and numbers is to have negative associations. It's to push you and drive you to negative associations. And I don't really want to be a part of doing that. I don't want to be another person that says like, boo, negative association. So tonight's not really about that. It was just simply to kind of go deeper into, well, what is going on here with all these 57s and everything like that. So what encouraged this, folks? So I'll put some things up on the screen to kind of give you an idea here. Oh, that's right. I got to hang on. I forgot. All right. All right. Here we go. Doop, 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 doop. All right, sorry about this. Give me just a second. All right. That's a good point. Somebody else brought that up. 57 means 5G also. Yeah. All right. So what I do sometimes is I'll just look a number up on the internet, just a standard internet search. But a lot of times Wikipedia, despite all of its flaws and basically being kind of a great big, I don't know, garbage can of bias, built-in bias, it's not completely without merit. It has some of its good qualities. So let's get deeper into that. Messier object M57, a magnitude 9.5 planetary nebula in the constellation Lyra, also known as the Ring Nebula. The new general catalog object NGC 57, an elliptical galaxy in the constellation Pisces. I thought these were interesting, though. Passenger 57, a film starring Wesley Snipes, 1992 American action thriller film directed by Kevin Hooks. The film stars Wesley Snipes and Bruce Payne, with Snipes portraying a security consultant who finds himself forced to foil a plot to free a captive terrorist during a commercial airline flight. Contagion is a 2011 American thriller film directed by Steven Soderbergh. The plot concerns the spread of a virus. Yes, folks, and I never watched Contagion, so this kind of tripped me out a little bit. But Contagion, I guess, in the plot line of that, the vaccine that cures it within the monkeys that they're using in the lab is called vaccine number 57. Passenger 57 involves, obviously Wesley Snipes playing a passenger in row number 57. And he has that legendary line from the trailer that says, did anyone ever tell you about roulette? And he says that to the guy that's on the gangster, and he says, always bet on black. I thought that was interesting, guys, because Wesley Snipes didn't just say it to any gangster. He said it to a European gangster. The European gangster, that's relevant because roulette wheels in the United States are different than roulette wheels that are called European roulette wheels. A European roulette wheel has 37 slots. It's different. It has an extra slot. I learned that when I was researching the number 37 relative to the zodiac. I never understood why it seemed like the only other thing that had 37 that was super relevant, it was just the zodiac, and the only other thing I could really find was the roulette channel. So, hey, or the roulette wheel. And so, that part I thought was weird. It felt like a little bit more than a coincidence, because then a lot of my articles surrounding that number 37 was getting people's attention, both in the FBI and the general population, that when somebody tries to push the number 37 excessively to you relative to a human trafficking hotline, you really need to understand the origins of that and why that might be. Why would they make the number 888-37888? I mean, sorry, 3737-888. It's bizarre they would do that. And it's because the number 3 is C, the number 7 is G. And so it creates an association subliminally within the brain. And people who study guys' numbers, they know this. Any ham radio operator does this. They're all everybody knows the basics of alphanumerics and how the brain unpackages it. It's one of those things that it's such basic 101 involving subliminal everything. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, etc. Keep going. Okay. CG is 37. So you're effectively having a number that says, ha ha, cage, cage, ha ha. That's what 888-3737-888 does in the human brain. It says, ha ha, cage, cage, ha ha. Seriously. So who would do something like that? Who would think of something like that? Knowing that the Zodiac Killer is the only other thing aside from the roulette wheel that's been of huge cultural significance outside of all of Hollywood's random references to 37, which are not random if you ask me, then no, it's like an inside joke. 37 means killing. 37 means people that are serial killers that do negative things to children. They get away with it. Love the number 37. They even made an entire movie called 37 about a little girl, and you'll love this. Not love, it's just disgusting. Sorry. They named her Kitty Genovese. Nobody's named Kitty Genovese. That's a cipher, and I think we all know what it means. And then the movie claims that it's based on a true story where a girl whose initials are KG, Cage, just like 3737 is Cage Cage. They make the character's name Kitty Genovese, Cage. Strange, right? 3737 Cage. It's kind of disgusting, guys. Then this horrible horror film that alleges to be some cautionary tale about not giving a shit. Then it's about how this little girl gets killed inside her apartment while 37 people don't do anything about it. You tell me what that's about, you guys. Then I learned that Victor Salva, legendary pedophile that got caught molesting a boy, then went on to direct the Jeepers Creepers series, amongst other things like Powder for Disney. Well, he also directed his first film before being picked up by a film studio, and it was 37 minutes long. The people that are kind of into these things, into child pornography and doing creepy things and molesting kids and kidnapping them and that kind of thing, 37 seems to be their number, folks. So I thought that maybe passenger 57 was a little bit of a hint for people based on, forward and back timeline type drops. Okay. So it's interesting to me that knowing what I kind of know about, the way that a lot of these things work, that's very likely what's going on with that. Again. All right. And then, I thought it was also interesting that the Terminal starring Tom Hanks, there were 57 members of the jazz band that Victor Navarosky carries a picture of with him. All of these three plot lines are super relevant, guys. Passenger 57, Wesley Snipes. Contagion, Vaccine 57. The Terminal, Tom Hanks, 57 members. All right. The Terminal is about a guy that stays in limbo and can't leave an airport area because of the status of his country relative to where he's trying to go. Something similar happened to me last year. Bizarre. In the movie Contagion, it wasn't exactly that, but if you kind of know reality, it's sort of like that. It's just like not an acknowledged reality. Something similar is going on in America right now. Best thing I can tell, but I'm best here. That's the thing I can tell you. Passenger 57, a film starring Wesley Snipes, again, had the 37 reference on top of him, making that always bet on black thing. To me, that was also relevant because that links you, that particular series of data sets, then links you to that whole story involving Laura Silsby, where she was caught with 33 Haitian children, and that that was back in the when Clinton was running the State Department and Obama was in office, if I'm not mistaken, and or pretty close to that is when it either is when it got re-released and they got covered up again, or it was known, I think, or uncovered while she was in the State Department. I can't remember. The point would be, though, that it was known that it was her who called in the favor for Laura Silsby, who then went on to run Amber Alerts on the board of directors. Really, guys, a person that gets caught, like having, whether you think she was innocent or guilty, if the person has a track record of making shitty decisions, like taking 33 kids from Haiti to another country without the proper paperwork, maybe not the best person to run Amber Alerts. Maybe not the best person to be on their board of directors and go like, hey guys, remember that woman that got caught stealing black babies from Haiti? Yeah, she's on our board of directors for Amber Alerts. Good hire, huh? Right? No, actually, it seems like you're trolling us. They do. So I think people knew this, guys, and I think that they've been trying to tell us for a long time and warn us that there's this problem that's been going on. And America, despite the fact that we're willing to believe a whole bunch of things, for some strange reason, this timeline thing they struggle with. So I'm doing my best to be as good of a communicator with it without getting myself into any like weird, like I can't talk people into something they haven't figured out. But those who figured it out, hey, I can help you understand how to get into the next phase of it, I think. I really do. And I think I'm on the cusp of figuring this out, like what we do next. And Rudyard, which is spelled Rudyard, I think is really interesting. Rudyard Kipling's short story, The Man Who Would Be King, the character Peachy states, this business is our 57. After he and Daniel are discovered to be men, not gods. This alludes to the Indian Rebellion in 1857, or India's first war of independence against British rule. The Fabulous 57 were disc jockeys on WMCA 570 radio, New York City during the 1960s. So again, Fabulous 570s, they're on 570 radio. Likely they were broadcasting from somewhere on West 57th, which was just like, again, amplifying it. 5 plus 7 equals 12. When you're doing numerology, you'll always go to the digit root. So 5 plus 7 is 12. That's digit sum. Digit root, you'll take the 1 and the 2, and that equals 3. So 57 in digit root within Pythagorean numerology equals 3. So when they double up, or triple up, rather, when they triple up on 37s, yeah, they're going 3, 3, 3. They double up on 57s, they're actually communicating 33. It's another way of doing it, okay? Agent 57 is the name of the master of disguise in the television series Danger Mouse. I'm not familiar with that series. I just kind of heard of it. Exit 57 was a comedy show on Comedy Central with Stephen Colbert. The West 57 Overlanders is a fictional brigade mentioned in the television series Firefly. I thought that was interesting because I used to know somebody that I think is pretty knowledgeable and wise and just kind of keeps it to themselves what they know sometimes. And they were a good friend of mine. And I remember they said specifically that there was a lot of things that I needed to understand that are in the movie Firefly, or rather in the TV series Firefly. And she got me to watch the film Serenity kind of as like a preview or whatever. And I remember saying like, wow, Serenity was a good movie. You know, I probably should check out the series. And so I watched a few episodes and I thought it was good quality and all, but I think I actually might have watched the whole thing. I think I did watch all of Firefly. Yeah, I did. I just don't have a good memory of it like all the super fans out there. But I do remember I thought it had a lot of good information in it. And I did think that it had a lot of relevant just data in general. I think that there was some moral things that were going on there. They were kind of challenging people with some what ifs to say like, hey, if we ever have space travel, what are some of the things that we're going to have to entertain doing, you know, because people are going to have unique needs relative to space travel that you do not have down here in, regular Earth. There's going to be people that, you know, they need to, I don't know. I mean, think about it, guys. If you ever see like Source Code, for example, I talk about a lot. It was directed by Duncan Jones, or is it Duncan Jones or Duncan Clark? I forget. I apologize. I think it's Duncan Jones. And but anyways, the same director made the film Moon, and the film Moon is about a guy that travels to the moon to do some like mining, whatever operations, but they go sometimes by themselves because of the limited number of people they can go, or they just find themselves for extended periods of times by themselves up there, isolated on the moon. And so you have to think about about these things. What kind of effects would there be for a person trying to get some larger things done relative to the moon? What kind of challenges would they have with isolation and the types of syndromes and the types of the things that could generate as a result of being up there for so long? How would they perceive reality after a while relative to people on Earth? It actually might change for them, you know? So it's things that you kind of have to know about and think about. People are in a different area entirely if you accept that it's real. So how would they go? How would they change their perception of reality, space time? I mean, I think about these things just when you go from one continent to another. I can't imagine going from one ionosphere to another. You know, completely different one, right? So with the series Robot Chicken makes a lot of these 57 references, I guess, and Robot Chicken was Seth Green, or is rather Seth Green's invention. Seth Green, I think, has had some challenges. He was on Epstein Island's list. You know, some people have made some accusations towards him. I don't know how true or false they are or anything like that, but, you know, that might be something relevant for that reason. I don't know. Studio 57 was a dramatic anthology series in 1954 starring Brian Keith and Carolyn Jones. Again, another 57 reference, but that one doesn't seem to be actually referencing West 57th. Then probably one of the best known out of all of these is Heinz 57, which is a brand of steak sauce, I guess. No, wait, that's ketchup. Sorry. Heinz does the steak sauce and they do the ketchup. So they're like a brand that does both. And then Incident on 57th Street is a song by Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band from their 1973 album, The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle. 57 Channels and Nothing On, also by Bruce Springsteen. So you got to ask yourself, why did they do those? I don't think it ever explains it. Incident on 57th Street, song written by Bruce Springsteen that was written on his, let's see here. Okay, according to Springsteen, the theme of Incident on 57th Street is a redemption, a theme he would return to again many times. The story is set in New York City and tells the story of Spanish Johnny and Puerto Rican Jane. It has parallels to Leonard Bernstein's West Side Story and telling a Romeo and Juliet-like story with Latin American characters set in New York. Johnny is explicitly referred to as a cool Romeo and Jane as a late Juliet. Johnny comes to Midtown Manhattan after getting beat up while trying to work as a male escort. Although rejected by everyone else, he finds redemption when Jane sympathizes with him, saying, "Johnny, don't cry." They sleep together, but when his old companions call him asking him to join in making some easy money, he leaves Jane to join them. Jane tells him that, you can leave me tonight, but just don't leave me alone. Johnny agrees to return to her tomorrow, although he doesn't actually know if he'll be able to, telling her that we may find it out on the street tonight, baby, or we may walk until the daylight, maybe. Springsteen leaves the ending ambiguous, leaving to the listener's imagination whether Johnny's adventure that night meets with a tragic end or whether the lovers actually do get away. 57 Channels and Nothing On is a song written and performed by Bruce Springsteen. Again, Bruce Springsteen made 2 57 references. You know. The title may be a reference to cable television, which carries more channels than terrestrial television. The accompanying music video illustrates the song's narrative, culminating in a recreation of Ant Farm's infamous 1975 media burn stunt, wherein a speeding car crashes through a pyramid of television sets. The same art collective was also responsible for Cadillac Ranch, immortalized in the Bruce Springsteen song of the same name, From the River. Bruce Springsteen himself is also playing a bass, which he also played in the recording. In a September 2014 post on Facebook discussing the video, Springsteen wrote, "Shot back in the quaint days of only 57 channels and no flat screen TVs. I have no idea what we were aiming for in this one outside of some vague sense of hipness and an attempt at irony. Never my strong suit. It reads now to me as a break from our usual approach and a kind of playful misfire." Strange, right? But here I thought was interesting. One of the most used microphones, I guess, in the entire industry of microphones, you know, for live sound recording is the Shure SM57 model. And a lot of the research that I've been doing lately has been, you know, about how things like electromagnetic fields and magnetic coils change the plasma field. And a lot of Preston Nichols research is really tapped into the same knowledge set of the way that plasma travels through the coils and imprints onto the data of the cassettes and things like that. It's really amazing how many times, like, you know, these things seem to synchronize and fit like puzzle pieces. Anyways, so that was just some other references to 57 that I wanted to share with you kind of briefly and dig deeper into. This, though, I thought was super interesting, folks, that in this film Contagion, directed by Steven Soderbergh, that the lab monkey that they test on the vaccine gets vaccine number 57. And so look at the plot of this. The plot concerns the spread of a virus transmitted by respiratory droplets and formites, attempts by medical researchers and public officials to identify and contain the disease, the loss of social order in a pandemic, and the introduction of a vaccine to halt its spread. To follow several interacting plot lines, the film makes use of the multi-narrative hyperlink camera style popularized in several of Soderbergh's films. Check this out, guys. You want to talk about predictive realities and shit? Returning from a Hong Kong business trip, Beth Emhoff meets with her former lover during a Chicago layover. 2 days later, back home in suburban Minneapolis, Beth's husband, Mitch, rushes to the hospital when she suffers a seizure. She dies from a previously unknown virus. Returning home, Mitch finds that his stepson, Clark, has also died. Mitch is isolated but found to be naturally immune. After being released, Mitch protectively keeps his teenage daughter, Jory, quarantined at home. In Atlanta, Department of Homeland Security representatives meet with Dr. Ellis Cheever of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention over concerns that disease may be a bioweapon. Wow, how about that, you guys? Weird, isn't it? Cheever dispatches Dr. Aaron Mears, an epidemic intelligence officer, to, of all places, Minneapolis. Man, I tell you what, guys, this is getting even weirder, where she traces everyone having had contact with Beth. You know, like contact tracing, like we're experiencing with COVID. She negotiates with reluctant local bureaucrats to commit resources for a public health response. Soon after, Mears becomes infected and dies. As the novel virus spreads, several cities are placed under quarantine, causing panic buying, widespread looting, and violence. Kind of like right now. At the CDC, Dr. Ali Hextall determines the virus is a combination of a genetic material from pig and bat-borne viruses. Scientists are unable to discover a cell culture to grow the newly identified MEV1. So not COVID, MAVE1. Cheever determines the virus too virulent to be researched at multiple labs and restricts all work to one government site, and orders University of California researcher Ian Sussman to destroy his samples. Believing he is close to finding a viable cell structure, Sussman violates the order and identifies the usable cell structure from which Hextall develops a vaccine. Scientists determine the virus is spread by respiratory droplets and formites with an RO of 4. When the virus mutates, that project 1 in 12, the world population will be infected with a 25 to 30% mortality rate. Conspiracy theorist Alan Crumweed, crew, microwave. Anyways, I'll let you figure out that name. He claims to have cured himself of the virus during a homeopathic cure derived from forsythia. People seeking forsythia violently overwhelm pharmacies. Croomweed, having faked being infected to boost sales of forsythia, is arrested for conspiracy and securities fraud. Hextall inoculates herself with the experimental vaccine, then visits her infected father. She does not contract MEV1, and the vaccine is declared a success. The CDC awards vaccinations by lottery. Hey. The CDC awards vaccinations based by lottery on birth dates. By this time, the pandemic's death toll has reached 2.5 million in the US and 26 million worldwide. You know, guys, if I didn't know any better, I would say some folks are just trying to program some disasters in everybody's mind, in the collective hive mind. And, you know, I don't know what to tell you guys, but, you know, just maybe start to like, there's sometimes you're getting warnings in advance, and there's sometimes you're getting whatever. I don't really know where this falls in it. You know, but it's a little strange that it's Vaccine 57 and that this movie pretty much mirrors kind of what's going on right now, except it doesn't really get into like the whys. It kind of like, it's almost like it knew 10 years ago what was going to happen now, but it associated different reasons for the events. Kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that, Tracy, that was released on Nikola Tesla's birthday. I'll have to go back and look at that. Hang on, let me see your 57 channels. I'll be damned, you're right. Yeah, July 10th. She's right. Look at that, guys. that's not even, look at this. Look. Tesla born July 10th. Yeah, good eye. Yeah, see 57 channels, July 10th, 1992. Nikola Tesla, born July 10th, 1856. So yeah, guys, I mean, this is the thing, like I get confused about what we're really experiencing. I mean, how much of it is benevolent timeline dropping and how much is, you know, whatever, right? Programming of reality. I don't know. I usually open myself for it to be either one. So I try not to get fooled by something that may be malevolent of intention. And I try not to, you know, overly program it with my beliefs to say that it's rigidly intended to be one thing or the other, because it could be both and it could be neither, you know? So yeah, good call on that one. All righty. Let's see. What are we at here? And so I'm trying to think like, all right, so relative to energetics and thoughts become things here when it comes to the video material, I'm going to see if I can get something pulled up here. Energetics. Where is my energetics playlist, man? I cannot find it. I know it's here someplace. There it is. I have too many playlists, and I can't find them easily anymore. Hang on. God, too many open windows. Hang on. Sorry, hang on really quick. Almost there. Okay, here we go. So I think what I'll do is I'll play part one of energetics here just to kind of give you a brief overview on like, the thoughts become things relative to numbers thing. I don't want to get deep into that whole topic, and it's only about 11 minutes, and I'll be right back. An esoteric angle originating Montana, California area, which I discovered while during my research California area. All right, in the process of researching an esoteric angle originating from the Fontana, California area, which I discovered while during my research on the Zodiac crimes, which I would encourage you to go back and look at those clips if you're unfamiliar. But basically, I've been following some research involving esoteric angles and occult activity. And that led me to the Fontana area where actually I have quite a bit of family who have roots there. And so I know, a little bit more than average about most people about some of the local things that are going on there, even though I didn't really ever live there or anything. But I visited enough and things like that to kind of know things about it. And one of the things that I noticed was kind of interesting is that Fontana Road, a major thoroughfare, has kind of been there for a long time. It runs through the middle of town at precisely 44.66 degrees. If you get out your Google Earth tool and draw an angle, you'll notice it follows at 44.66, which is pretty specific. But the reason why I think it's actually at 66, and that's not just a whatever you want to call it, a miscalculation, is because not only does it follow Fontana Road, but it actually crosses Route 66 on its way out of Fontana and San Bernardino County area. So. And then it continues on and crosses over like Twin Peaks, Lake Arrowhead area, and then continues on towards Primm, Nevada. And so and if you doubt the reality of that, look at my Buckaroo Banzai Lucerne Valley reports, because those lines crossed over that. So there's a link. These things are all linked, guys, and there is Masons and other groups that were putting signs out there. In my Buckaroo Banzai report, I literally went out there to where this line is, and I found a post randomly. I was not looking for it. All I did was go to where I knew they filmed the scene from the Buckaroo Banzai in the Eighth Dimension, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai in the Eighth Dimension. Okay, really good film with Peter Weller. It's just all about this weird space-time thing. It doesn't make any linear sense. You have to have a very symbolic mind to even understand it, I think. Otherwise, it's just going to be random and funny and cool things that you see on screen and don't make a lot of sense. But I think if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai will make a lot of sense to you. But yeah, it's all in there. And it's a movie that kind of requires that you like watch it a few times and really unpackage and decrypt it. But you'll see it all. Very, very silly and weird and seemingly random until I went out there to the filming location and there was a post that I knew had been there for at least decades that was marked 1933. And it was there at the dry lake where they filmed all the scenes from Buckaroo Banzai that lines up to everything I'm talking about in this story. And this happened this year. And I did this article 3 years ago, at least, before I knew any of these things. And, aside from that, these energy lines existed, I hadn't gone out and physically researched it yet. Then I found physical things where I'm going, whoa, there's definitely something to this, Anyways, back to it. I was following that 44.66 degree line, and it took me out to Primm, Nevada. I couldn't help but notice the solar array that's out there. It's kind of a unique setup, and when you zoom in on it, you'll notice it has some pretty unique features. It kind of looks like three circles, and they have a whole series of solar arrays that go around it. And as you zoom in, you can kind of really see what's kind of going on out there. But the reason why this piqued my curiosity is just because I think in terms of like how a communications engineer does. I think in terms of how would something work if this was something other than a solar array, for example. So I just kind of had an intuition that there's a tunnel network that extends between that area of San Bernardino County and continues along where Fontana is and heads out towards Nevada, crossing through Las Vegas and the Henderson area. And what makes me think that is that I've just found too many markers and things like that out there that kind of indicate tunnels and underground facilities. And then as I kind of traced the suspected routes of those into this area where it seems almost like it works almost like a communication network where there's, pipelines that, go into like a main line and then head out towards Primm. So
I'm thinking maybe that's what's going on. And then I'll get into a decrypt on Prim. There's a whole bunch of things going out there. I'm going to have to split this up into a few different presentations, but just kind of consider this more of a broad overview as to what I think might be going on here. It just seems to me like there's a possible bioenergetic system, just because I followed the research of Wilhelm Reich, and I've studied these things a little bit myself, and have seen just examples of bioenergetics at work, to where I need to find more test equipment and be in a more lab oriented environment before I can really tell you what I completely believe about bioenergetics and orgone. But I think that what might be going on out here is that you're dealing with energetics at a POR and DOR spectrum. And I'm just going to read this over really quick, the research of Wilhelm Reich, to give you a quick idea of what I'm talking about here. And before I get into the patterns too. So, but basically, it says, with further research, Wilhelm Reich found that orgone energy is responsible for storms and bad weather. Dead orgone, or DOR, was the term used to describe the dead energy found within violent thunderstorms and hurricanes. This dead energy was also found within people as well. Active people had plenty of orgone energy, while those who were depressed or sullen had an excess of DOR energy. And so there's some slides that I can show you where when POR is emanating from the body, it externalizes. So the signal, like bioenergetically, releases from the core of the body, the center of your chakra system, and outward. And it's a positive release. When a person's stressed or in fear or in an anxiety state, that it's the opposite. DOR causes the muscles to contract, and you go inward. So your energy is actually going in on itself, as opposed to emanating. So Reich is said to have been a brilliant man, credited with discovering the highly controversial orgone energy. Orgone energy is also known as life or orgasmic energy, and is very different from more ordinary electromagnetic energy. Reich supposedly provided the existence of orgone energy in various lab experiments and wrote his findings in several scientific journals. He claimed that orgone energy could cure cancer, a finding that didn't find wide acceptance with his colleagues. Reich also stated that orgone energy has related to cosmic energy and the Newtonian concept of the ether. Needless to say, his theories were widely criticized by his fellow scientists. After extensive research, Reich finally developed a device that would break up concentrations of DOR energy. When set up with a weather balloon, this device would dissipate or deflect thunderstorms. Armed with Reich's Stormbuster, the US government created a device called a radiosonde. The device consisted of several sensors and a transmitter that could broadcast across several bands to either build up orgone energy or disrupt DOR energy. With it, the government could control the weather. It should be pointed out that any device capable of transmitting both orgone and DOR energy could be used to affect people as well. It is possible that the Phoenix Project was also looking into methods of population control. Supposedly, the Soviet Union had conducted extensive experiments on select populations by broadcasting orgone or DOR energy into the area to try and alter the emotional content of the population. So this got me thinking in terms of the Giza pyramids and what they might have been, as far as in tandem with the research of Wilhelm Reich, that perhaps what he was really doing with bioenergetics was just tapping into the technology that was being used by the Egyptians in the pyramids. By that, I mean, when you kind of look at the structure of pyramids and the granite and everything that's in there, it's kind of reflective, like waveguide. And so in telecommunications, waveguide is like these systems of, where there's materials inside it to where the signal can kind of have it follows a certain designed path, right, as far as the way the signal behavior acts. And it just sends the signal through the microwave area here, right? So I don't want to get too deep into the technicals of it, but just think of it more as like a tunnel system where the energy passes through, and that's how microwave works. And just like when you're doing path-to-path communications, to where one dish points to the other dish and they can talk to one another. And also when you don't have another dish on the other side, it just fries it. It's kind of a similar concept, right? One dish, you're just pointing at something to cook it. If it's two dishes that are point to point, they're trying to communicate to one another. So what I think might be going on potentially, just as a broad overview here, is that there might be a tunnel system that connects areas of Southern California into Prim, and that part of their design is specifically to transmit orgone at the DOR spectrum, which is bioenergetics, and that they're really just potentially borrowing from all of the designs of the Giza pyramids and what their true intention was. Because I've had a long intuition, I'm sure a lot of other people have, and mind you, none of this is original ideas here. I'm just telling you that a lot of people have speculated that the king's and queen's chambers weren't necessarily places where people stayed or slept or were buried, but they were energy devices. And I think there might be something to that, especially when you start studying the concept of what Wilhelm Reich was talking about a little bit more in depth, involving that effectively POR is sort of life energy or orgasmic energy. So when you really get down to it, there might have been the whole purpose behind designating king and queen might have been specifically to discuss how
No, there's not really any maybe. It's exactly how it works. That's the thing that I think personally. It's not. I thought, like, guys, remember I did this material back in like 3 years ago is when I started my energetics series. Now that I'm on part 11, keeping in mind this is the very first one that I had such a basic knowledge when I began doing my energetics series. Now I have equipment to measure it, and I'm going like, no, it's true. This is exactly what this machine does. This is a huge energy device that's meant to broadcast plasma signatures of the king and the queen relative to Ka, Ba, Yin, Yang. It brings in. It's a little bit like you're taking in everything I discussed in the beginning of this presentation about the way people come into formation in their mother's womb. It's almost like the pyramid does it, and it amplifies it exponentially because you're bringing in king's DNA, queen's DNA, the energy signatures of both into this tunnel system. Let me expand that so you don't have to look at my face. And then you see how it expands though from the queen's chamber, and then it goes up like a steeple, and then that sends that energy signature up. The king's chamber sends that energy up. You have the orgone relative to the earth energy coming in from the bottom, mixing in between the king and the queen, then going up. Again, this is almost like what you see inside the mother's womb, but they're just doing it within physical reality to manifest like almost like another form of bendable physical reality, isn't it? I mean, kind of seems like that almost like this had effects that were just like so much more like significant. I think this may have actually changed our entire perception of time. Some of these things, if you really get down to it, it could have done that. And it may have been a good or a bad thing. I don't know, but it's really, really strange. But okay, so you say Lisa said there's a novel by Dean Koontz, 1981 to 1989, called The Eyes of Darkness. Here, I can put it up on the screen really quick. It's a novel by Dean Koontz, 1981 to 1989, The Eyes of Darkness, debate over which release named a virus called Wuhan 400. An interestingly debate as to whether on page 353 or 333. Wow, that's really trippy. Yeah, because they're both numerically, like they would both be relevant for different reasons, Yeah, that's strange. Sorry, I didn't mean to put that up there. It's just easier to do that than read it entirely. But yeah, God, wasn't that? No, I'm thinking of Michael Crichton. He did that book. I always get those two authors kind of confused because they sometimes cover some similar material. But yeah, interesting. But relative to this, really quick, but I think what happened though was that this energy structure kind of like brought something else into, like amplified the same effect that you get within a mother's womb, but it just does it within a physical energy device as a pyramidal structure. Even understanding this whole dynamic of the way we think in terms of these like pyramidal structures, we form reality in these sort of like formations of trinities and threes of energy. I don't know. It's something that I've had as an intuitive feeling for many, many years. And now it's really getting stronger, like how much I think this is the way it works. So I was stopping the energetics thing just temporarily to talk about that in greater detail. I used to like in this material, I was less confident about it, and I never get like 99 or more than 99% on anything. But this, I'm pretty close to 99% concluded that that's exactly what that means. Kings and Queens Chamber. It's about orgone, mixing of orgone, Ka, Ba, Yin, Yang, relative to what they were able to do to amplify, their beliefs and their influence. Yeah. And not always in a negative way. So
the spectrum of orgasm energy operates and how it can be perhaps harnessed and then redirected as a healing mechanism. So when you kind of look at the layout of the pyramids. This kind of lends credibility to this as a theory. And then when you integrate what potentially could be done as far as a weaponized DOR, as far as, just pulling off of anxiety signatures, fear signatures, trauma signatures, and taking that bioenergetic signature and funneling down through cave systems, which act like, which I'm sure are being redesigned, or if it's happening, right, they're probably have a specific structure to funnel the bioenergetics through there. And to those who doubt this is a real thing, you can probably find online clips where people have actually bottled, and Wilhelm Reich bottled and was able to actually contain this energy, and that it took on the appearance of like a purple light when it was bottled. So he was able to, in his experiments, actually power devices and actually run electronics, you see. So when you add in the concepts of that, you have modern day devices called radiosondes that we have used, and it has been acknowledged that the Weather Service uses to pulse megahertz signals into the atmosphere. And I can show you examples of those here. It lends credibility to this as a potential theory. And then when you look, just as a pattern recognition person, when you just kind of study the structure of how these solar arrays have been placed, it's almost like they were mimicking the Giza pyramids as part of the design, that they are borrowing heavily from it, or just merely creating a replication of what's going on out there in a more modern form using modern materials. So it's something to consider, I think. And there's things that would back this up. As far as like, what do you want to call it? There's entertainment that I've noticed that seems to be focused on Prim, Nevada. And I started thinking in terms of like, what types of telecommunications would they be providing to go into these types of networks? Who would be supporting a project like this? Who would be involved in that kind of thing? So I thought it was worth investigating at a bare minimum so that we could, find out what might be going on here in more depth. But I don't want to get too deep into that part right now. I'd rather just focus on, discussing bioenergetics at this level. What are the possibilities? What are some of the methodologies that could be used to transmit bioenergetic signatures and bioenergetic concentrated energies between locations, that type of thing. So again, this is going to be kind of like a part one, and I just wanted to introduce people to the concepts of what I'm talking about here and get some of the thoughts going a little bit, and then I'm going to start discussing more specific, things involving potential connection.
Okay, wonk, wonk, wonk. Back. I start turning into Charlie the Brown's teacher. Yeah. No, but see, then I got into part 10 and 11. And that's really at the root of everything, folks, is that 10 and 11 is about love. And when you're focused and concentrated on creation, and when you're focused and concentrated on building something and you really believe in it, now I'm not talking about like intangible things. Well, yes, intangible. Yes, absolutely intangible things, especially intangible things. When you're thinking at that moment about creation and life, and you're genuinely forward focused, you're genuinely feeling it. You actually like, you're vibrating, the hairs are standing up on your arms. You really get it. Okay. That's when you're really establishing some building blocks to manifesting something in physical reality, especially when you're close to the water. Holy cow. Try to watch my language here. But yeah, let me tell you something. When you're close to the water, what I experienced by the Hug Point Pyramid, that I think is a pyramid, but your mileage may vary, that's over there on the West Coast. It's close to the town of Manzanita, and just north of there, near kind of between Manzanita and Cannon Beach, there's this niche that you go off on that's hard to find, guys. It's blink and you'll miss it. It's called Hug Point, and it's two extremes. You go straight down this hilltop, then you're right there in this little nook where there's this big rock there, and all this ocean crashes against it. It's a really beautiful scenic spot. So pretty out there. But there's a private road on the opposite side of Highway 101 that if you go up to the top of it, you're effectively on a pyramidal structure. And it's something that really takes some looking into. But when you look at it in Google Earth, it's hard to argue. Like, yeah, that thing's a freaking pyramid. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean it was built to be one. It just, it has such a perfect structure of one that I think what it winds up doing is it has the energy signature of a pyramidal structure. And so anything that happens at Hug Point tends to have an amplification effect. And so what I learned is that because I did this thing that was not a ritual, it was just a simple engagement, like, hey, would you marry me thing that happened there. It just had this really strong effect because it amplified through the energy grid. And I learned my lesson about like how powerful that is, like what kind of things you can program that are tangible into physical reality relative to numbers. Even the numbers all came through, guys. It's like you think about it. What if you thought about a very specific number and like it just manifested into something that translated into an area where you built a tower and all, like Wallowa Lake. Hug Point points to Wallowa Lake. Something like that basically happened. And then once you go out to Wallowa Lake, Oregon, now you're next to a cell tower that I built. And I'm thinking, how did all this happen? Thoughts become things. I focused and concentrated on building that tower. It linked to something else that I focused and concentrated on that was not the same thing, but something that I never brought into physical reality merged with something that I did bring into physical reality, a tower. The other thing, no, that was a psychoenergetic event involving me and a woman where, it was an agreement like, hey, let's get married kind of thing. We didn't get married. But again, it didn't stop me from, having that strong emotion when I was there by the ocean and learning the lesson of like, wow, like this whole process involving thoughts become things is a real bioenergetic process that actually translates to things that, really do form into physical reality. And then the whole reason why there's Heinz 57 and 57th Street West 57th and the 57 vaccine and the 57 Chevy and all the other 57 links. My own guys, I have my own weird thing with Chevy Chase and you can call me Al and that whole, storyline. And it's like, how do I deny that so many different things are translating into going into physical reality at this point? The thoughts become things has become very strong. The thoughts that become things and as I know it to be is legit. It's a thing. There's no way I'm ever going to question that thoughts become things ever again. And then once you understand that, then you go, wow, so what can I consciously do to balance energy? See, I don't want to be a person that dominates or creates these weird magical, Disneyland like environments of reality. I think that's the problem. I think everybody now wants to like have things their own way and make everybody else energetically sort of like bend to their will. And I've seen what I've been doing in these various locations that I've been in lately, especially the ones that I don't like being in. I've really not liked being here where I've been. I don't like being here, but I've understood the importance of being here. I've understood the energy work that I needed to do here. And that it was important to stay static in an area, even though it's kind of a dark and malevolent energy, that I learned over time that energy does not change me. And that if nothing else came from this experience, that I'm going to remember this forever. That even in the most challenging environments where things appear to be the darkest, that these energies do not change me and they will not change me. I will not have dark orgone radiation toxicity effects ever. And I can actually go into places where very few people can and actually come out of it with my head and mind intact and my physical body intact, sometimes even better than I was before having survived it. And part of that is the energy balancing process. It's because as I'm thinking this through more times here, at first I used to let it. A year ago when I was in this location, it was horrible. And I let the energy dominate me and it pushed me around. And it was not a good thing. It did not feel good. It felt like being pushed around. I felt like a weenie. But what I've learned now is to manage through this very challenging environment. And in doing so, I learned about this whole link that I told you about relative to the way you form in your mother's womb and the earth frequency, that you as a human machine can actually change the energy in physical locations in dramatic ways. And now I look to these things as opportunities. Like I want to go to the more challenging places sometimes. I don't mind now. I feel like it's my specialty, the way that maybe like Father Malachi wanted to be an exorcist, not because he liked doing exorcisms or wanted to be inside those horrible environments in those places, but because he knew there was very few people that understood it the way he did. And I think he did understand it. I think he did understand everything that I do in a very deep way. And I respect people that are bold enough to do what he did, because people make fun of you sometimes when you know that what you're doing has meaning and that it is actually relevant. And I've learned to turn these things into opportunities. Absolutely. And thank you for saying that, Lisa. I appreciate it, because it's let me tell you something. These places are, I mean, I'm glad I spent a lot of time doing wireless work. I'll put it that way. That I used to go up to the top of these cell towers at like in the middle of the night, because we had to handle emergencies. And I handled all types of environments, guys. I used to work in the cities, sometimes, so I could be in really, the middle of some really dark areas, like in the middle of the night, guys, like, up on some mountaintop where you could have all kinds of dudes that were, in various states of mental capabilities. Again, God bless people that are experiencing challenges, but hey, at the top of a mountain, I got to look out for me, and I'm sorry if they're going through challenges, but so you might scare one of these people, and you're trying to go into a fence in the middle of the night, and you're conscious and aware that one of these people might freak out and attack you. And I learned to just adapt, and now I don't let it doesn't scare me, and I'm not saying it to be like, it's just that something conditioned my DNA, and I think it's going to have a cascading effect on other people. And I think what the end effect is that if I allow myself to be challenged, and I allow myself to overcome situations that are challenging, and I learn to be the rock inside those waters like that, that it'll make it easier for others, and they'll see that they also have a unique role in this world to do something very similarly, and so I just want to kind of like, I think I want to finish up on that, folks. Really, I'm not sure I can add more to it tonight. But if you want me to, I can hang out for another whatever amount of time or whatever. But I think that's pretty much the most of the material I wanted to cover at the core of it, unless you have things like questions or you want me to play something that can expand on the topic or something, in which case I'll be happy to stick around. But overall, yeah, I just want you to know what's inside you. And that if you can learn this technique, and again, I'm happy to help people with it because it's taken me a long time to figure it out. And if you can learn to handle challenging environments and find that brainwave thing where you can kind of keep it lower and remember that things can bend around you. You don't have to make it change you. You can change the biofield. You are a part of it as much as it's a part of you, and you're sovereign. And just you're part of this whole energy field, but remember, you have a say and you have a role. You're voting in the plasma field to bend things into physical reality, because none of it is physical reality. Solid matter does not exist. So those of you who are spiritually minded, do not let people break you down in this spiritual war we're in. Don't let them break you down. Don't let them break you down spiritually, and help others figure it out. Don't get angry at them. I used to too, but like, just try to be like one. Are you sure you're seeing it the right way? Maybe there's another way to look at that. Maybe I can inspire you to think better. Maybe I can inspire you to want more or better, and then that'll pull the person out of the negative anchor, the trauma anchor, and it'll bring them closer into the building blocks that actually resonate things into physical reality in a positive way. Okay. And so let's take that on as a challenge, help one another, and do it for yourselves. And remember that this is literally how you're going to change your communities for the better. And I know some of you out there are having some unique challenges right now relative to your communities, just like I am. And hey, you're a necessary component of this. So stay in the fight whenever you want to and can, I would say, because it's not a fight for you. It's your work. It's your spiritual work. And this is what you're here for. So recognize your role. And thank you very much for all the support you folks have provided me spiritually and financially and everything else like that. I really do appreciate it. This is a beautiful audience. You're really great people, and I appreciate you joining. Thank you very much, and have a good night.